too close to an Arangar thing to call me Lanfear. No.
We're honest. Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. Can you hear me now? Honest. Okay, yes, excellent. We heard you the whole time.
All right, we're back, and let's see if people can hear us.
Hear us?
Yes.
Hi.
Tell us in chat if
Hi.
you can hear us. Yeah, that would be a good test. I think I from what I can tell, everyone can hear each other, and yeah. So tell us in chat if you can hear us. I'm going to check right here. Yes, all works. Great.
Is there a new stream? Did you start a new stream?
No, it should be the same stream.
Okay.
Oh, there is. Okay. But I feel like. Anyways, I think people can hear us. So, yeah, if there is, if someone can post it, maybe on Twitter, that would be helpful. But that's odd that there is a new stream. Anyways. Okay, I think we're back on track. Everyone can hear everyone. That's good. Let me take a drink there, and I can now share Andrel's. Perfect. Everyone can hear everything. Andrel's Daughter of the Night. So that'll give enough people time to come and join us while this plays. I'm not sure.
I don't hear it.
Yes, that okay. So that so, we can't hear that, but we can hear everything else. Okay, that's fine. We don't have to. We don't have to show that. We can just jump into what we're planning for our topic. So I put this in as a poll earlier. Let me see what people are saying. I'm going to end this poll. I said, is Lanfear wearing a mask every time we see her in the books? So let me go to you, Eric, first. What do you think? Is that a true statement?
Well, she always has a game or a long con happening.
Okay.
And so she doesn't reveal everything that she's up to. And so if you say that's a mask, then that's a mask.
Right.
What I found interesting going through these is that every time she had a mask, there were aspects of what seemed to be the real her bleeding through. And so I think when we see her a lot, it's the real her, but that's part of the fun of the character, I think, and that we're talking about this and we don't really know for sure.
Yeah. Zul, what about you? How often or when do we see the actual Lanfear? Do we see her a lot, or do we see her at all? How would you answer this question?
I think that we actually do see the real her, at least the real her who went into the boar and came out. So, for instance, in The Shadow Rising, when she goes to Rand in the stone as Selene and then drops her mask of mirrors, I think, and she's even more beautiful than Selene, who they already thought was the most beautiful woman they'd ever seen.
Right.
I think that is the real her. Tall and willowy and regal. And so I think when we see the exact opposite of that the Dark One puts her in a body opposite of that as Dane, I think that is a real statement of like, I'm going to make you the opposite of everything that you had as your persona. Right. And whether that was something that she had magically done, I don't know, but I really think that what she shows Rand at that moment is the real her.
Right.
Physically.
Yeah.
She tells him her game too at that point. Right. Her main goal.
Yeah, I think, to me, the time maybe we see Mirren is probably that again. Let me put this up there. This is full book spoiler, so I'm gonna before I talk about that, I'll give it a couple of kind of minutes to kind of go. But I think there is a point in the Memory of Light that we see actually Mirren and not just Lanfear, the person who's trying to get to whatever aim she has at that moment. There is it's a very small period when she's talking to Rand. And this is something that we actually showed, Innkeeper had showed, I think, on Monday night show, that there was a time where they're talking and she's like, can you let yourself go for just like a moment? And she took a couple of seconds, but says no, I can't. She could. Yeah, it was very close to actually seeing Mirren or actually getting through to her, and it never happened. So at least to me, that was Mirren, and I think every time else we see some mask in some way. So the first mask that we see is.
But you did ask if we ever
Yes.
saw the real Lanfear.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
And that is different from Mirren.
I accept being that my poll was ambiguous. So that is the nature of Dusty.
How
polls.
very Dusty Village.
Yeah, exactly.
Good job.
Right. So this is the first time we see, I think, the appearance of Lanfear on screen. So I'm going to read this to you. This is from The Great Hunt, chapter 10. The hunt begins. This is Uno. He's like, "Gone, my lord, but she was there, a woman in a white dress at the window. I saw her. I even thought I saw her inside for a moment, but then she was gone." And he took a deep breath. "The house is empty, my lord." It was a measure of his agitation that he did not curse. "Curtains," Matt muttered. "He's jumping at bloody curtains." Uno gave him a sharp look, then returned to his horse. So I think this is the kind of first on-screen appearance of the character Lanfear, and we start seeing her, fairly start. We see hear mention of her, but this is the first kind of there's someone in white. And we'd heard, the dark prophecy before, the daughter of night walks again. So, just to kind of, get a thought, was this Lanfear? Was this Selene? Who was this? Just to get a sense of how Lanfear plays this game. Who do you think this was, Eric? Was this Selene? Was this Lanfear? Which image was this?
Well, I think it's her being accidentally seen by Uno going to a place. Is it?
Yeah. So
I think it was Lanfear, and he spied her.
Right. Yeah.
I guess I don't know.
Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think this was
Um,
the young
I
Selene?
disagree.
Okay.
I think she was in her Selene guise. This is leading up to her taking Rand into the mirror world,
Mhm.
and I think she allowed herself to be glimpsed briefly.
Right.
I think she was kind
Okay.
of toying with the people,
Right.
and it was only Uno, like both times, the one-eyed guy
Yeah.
who
Exactly.
spotted her.
Poor
And
Uno.
I think she was toying with him because
Yeah.
the second time that she pops up is right before that time loop that Rand goes in.
Yeah.
It's in that same village. And so
Right.
we know that she's there, and that's her time loop that she traps him in.
Right.
But I think maybe she's having fun with him and just has that Selene, because we see her as Selene so much this whole book.
Mhm.
I'm just assuming that it's Selene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we actually think of Selene as that first, person that we see, I think this is when we actually see her in the mirror world, and she's now, they hear her a woman screaming, and then when they look back, there's this a groan, and Lanfear, this woman in white, is kind of fending the groan with a stick, and when Rand finally gets close enough, or when she gets close enough, this is the first time I think we see her actually speak. She says, "And I, the woman called, she sounded surprisingly calm, considering her screams. You must hit an eye to kill it." So this was like kind of, the first time she spoke. And even here, you're like, wait, something doesn't seem right about this person. So I think even from the start, Robert Jordan was like, this person is not what they seem to be. This person is in a disguise, maybe. So I think, like, right from the start, that notion of it was pretty obvious. And if you think back to the first time you read The Great Hunt, how obvious was that Selene is not who she claims to be, or is Lanfear?
I have no memory of my initial read of the books, the first books. I'd like to think I figured it out, but I don't know. But each of her guises or masks that we'll get into, there were pieces of her bleed through all of it, and so I'd like to think, I think that we knew it, like the theories discussion the other night. Was it obvious at the time, or not?
Oh, to me, it was really obvious.
Yeah,
she was
really?
so sus.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that just a little bit before this, Huron looks back behind them.
Yeah.
And sees a woman in white and something else.
Right.
So maybe she was just with the girl already, and then she transported them both in front of them. And
yeah, it was like, they look north, but it was then south or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're headed south. They're like at the monument or something, and they hear a scream, and they're like, it can't be the same woman. She's in front of us. That one was behind us. So.
All right.
I think Robert Jordan was like kind of just giving us little things like.
All right, so let me try to put this on and see if you can actually read this for me. So this is when she's first described as Selene. So let me put this on the screen. It's a little bit, it's a little bit of text there, but if you can read it, let me know.
She was all in white, her dress divided for riding and belted in silver, and her boots, peeking out from under her hems, were tooled in silver too. Even her saddle was white and silver mounted. Her snowy mare, with its arched neck and dainty step, was almost as tall as Rand's bay. But it was the woman herself. She was perhaps Nynaeve's age, he thought, who held his eyes. She was tall, for one thing, a hand taller, and she could almost look him in the eyes. For another, she was beautiful. Ivory pale skin, contrasting sharply with her long, night dark hair and black eyes. He had seen beautiful women. Moiraine was beautiful if cool, and so was Nynaeve, when her temper did not get the better of her. Egwene and Elaine, the daughter of Andor, were each enough to take a man's breath. But this woman, his tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. He felt his heart start beating again.
So, clearly he's stricken by this woman, right? What do you think in terms of, like, is this Mask of Mirrors? Is this Compulsion? Is it both? What do you think the persona Selene is made of, Eric? Do you think it's, just the Mask of Mirrors, and, she has, she's just a beautiful woman and Rand is just smitten and taken by it? Or is there more to it than that?
Well, she's younger. She's his age, he thinks. And I think I don't know that she had to compel him, because I don't know to what degree she was observing him before this, but she recognizes he's a teenage boy.
Right.
And she has some, I'm guessing, ego about herself, at least a little bit. And so, but she wanted to come to him as someone maybe his age, or someone that he would need to rescue.
Right. Yeah.
And,
so
appealing to the boy aspects of it.
Yeah. So what do you think? I'm putting this in as a poll. Is Selene using the Mask of Mirrors, Compulsion, or both? I think that is.
Well, I don't know that it's exactly compulsion, but if you watch her with Rand
Mm-hmm,
all the way through until she disappears
mm-hmm,
at Tremoncian in Kyrian, um, you'll see that like when he's not with her, he does he kind of thinks a little differently, but all of a sudden he thinks of her, he smells her, he's not Perrin with super smelling,
right.
super nose.
Yeah.
Um, and so he suddenly like is more influenced by her
Mm-hmm.
whenever he's that close to her. So I think, or she touches him or something, and suddenly there's something. So it's compulsion-esque,
Right.
and she, the innkeeper said, she affects Kieran
Mm-hmm.
in a way that um, is
Loyal. Yeah.
Yeah, even
and
loyal. I mean, loyal.
in their own way.
Yeah.
Even loyal. So
I forget
there's
what the
something there.
first
It's
words.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's something there. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm sure she's doing something.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe she's just got this like magical perfume that makes her just like attractive to the people
Yeah.
in whatever way they find attractive. I don't know.
This is interesting. I see Kairos is saying, I think she didn't dare try to compulse him, compel him there because, just to be, to some degree, I think there is a apprehension around, Lutheran. I think that's there, but I think at least and I'll show some of this in a little bit. Every time anyone meets her, they're like absolutely just they can't function for a little bit, and people meet Berlin, people meet other people who are described as really beautiful, and that doesn't happen. They just say, oh, this person's really good looking, but they're not loyal. That's where I thought where it was a little bit where why is loyal. I forget exactly what he says, but he says something like, I have never thought about it, but if there was ever a thing that could be the pinnacle of human beauty, something like that, he makes it, he makes a hasty comment, which was, again, out of character for loyal. And this is interesting. Dawson Cole says it's possibly a different weave, because why would loyal and Huron both be something over themselves to try and serve her? So unless it's like a broad kind of, a triangle that sways people towards her, or makes makes them think a certain thing, we don't really know. Because again, Village Mattresses Galad has the same kind of effect, but it wouldn't for Loyal or Huron, right? So or maybe like Moraine, if Moraine is around Galad, I doubt that would happen. So I think there is something like that there, and I'll pull up the Egwene meeting, and I think and the Silvia meeting, that there is things that suggest that there is compulsion to some degree going on. Now, Robert Jordan might not have had compulsion down to an art back then, so maybe that's why we don't see it as that. But I think at this point we see someone.
At some point, does she say that Rand was not affected as strongly as
when she
Loyal
goes
when she was away?
When she meets him in the stone, she said he doesn't feel it's his point of view. He says something. He's not not as stricken or whatever.
And also, and I think he's not as like Moiraine when she says, "Oh, I should have known it was him."
Right.
When he resisted, and I think it's because he's a channeler and he's a stronger Tavira, and he has a stronger ability to resist outside influences like that. So I think she is using something, and her commenting on his ability to resist says that she is using something.
Yeah. So, Daniel Greenshair, thank you for joining us, Daniel. I ship Loyal and Lanfear like all real fans do, and I actually have this. This is Loyal. I have never thought of it before. Loyal said abruptly, sounding as if he were talking to himself. But if there is such a thing as perfect human beauty in face and form, than you. So this is, on seeing Selene in that moment. So this is I think a clear, at least to me, when I reread this, I was like, this is not just someone who's just beautiful. There's something more to it. Now, what it is a little bit hard to maybe pinpoint. I don't think, looking back, nothing in the notes or anything else was clear. But I think there is something more than that. The next kind of thing, again, which is again goes to speak to her doing anything to get what she wants. And I did not remember this, so I don't know, Eric, if you can read this. I'm going to put this on the screen, and if you can, if you're able to see this and read it.
The woman laughed musically, but the next instant she was all regal formality, like a queen on her throne. I am called Selene, she said. You have risked your life and saved mine. I am yours, Lord Randolph Four. And to Rand's horror, she knelt before him.
So, kneeling, Lanfear kneeling before anyone. I don't know how I'd forgotten this, but, when we think of motivation, so let's talk about, what is Lanfear as Selene's big motivation in this, damsel in distress person coming to Rand in a mirror world? Like, why is she doing all of this in the way she does it? Eric, what do you think? What is Selene doing here, or Lanfear doing?
I think her two things. First of all, she's never met him before, so she wants to make sure he's Lews Therin and see, does he remember? How different is he? Is he a boy? What's the deal here, with him? And
yep.
As we go further, she finds out he doesn't know and doesn't care, and so she's trying to get him to claim his rightful place, seek glory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Zul, before I get your thoughts, this is a live call-in talk show. I'm going to put that up there. So call in. Tell us what you think Lanfear is doing as Selene here. Is she just trying to figure out, yes, is this Lews Therin, yes or no? Or the question I always thought was, why the whole take him to a mirror world? Is that her plotting? Is that her taking him away from Shamil? What was that part of her plan at all? Zul, what do you think?
Well, I think that she wanted to isolate him and get some time with him away from everybody else, because he was in a big group at this point. And so we know from things that she says later on that she is trying to mold him. She's getting a chance to mold him. And very creepily, she wished she had found him as a baby, because then it would have been easier. I mean, gross. But she's trying to like mold him and coax him along. And, like, she's trying to get him to use the one power, and she's wants him to go for glory when they have the horn. And so there are these different things where she's trying to like get him on a path that goes along with her. And I think that's one reason why I don't think it's actual compulsion, because she wants him to go willingly.
Yes.
She doesn't want him to be like a blind follower.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'll show this in a second. But did you have any other thoughts there, Zul?
No. I just really think that, and she wanted, like what Eric said earlier about, she presented herself as someone who could be saved, and gave him that chance to like be the man and save her. And I think she just created the perfect atmosphere for that by taking them to this world that was empty of other people.
Right. So, I mean, there's this whole arc, right, where that's Selene with Rand. Where we see Selene, the Lady Selene, mentioned again in in one thing that I'm going to show in the Dragon Reborn with Matt. So I'm going to end this poll, and let's see. So I asked, is Selene using the Mask of Mirrors, Compulsion, or both? There's about 7 people who said only Compulsion, which again I feel like again misleading, because how else would she be changing her appearance other than the Mask of Mirrors? But about 53% people think there was some degree of both of those, that she was altering her appearance and also enhancing maybe some of those attributes by some compulsion. So this is, I can read this. This is from the Dragon Reborn, Chapter 20, Visitations. So this is Matt in the tower. So the woman who came in, dressed all in white silk and silver, shut the door behind her and leaned back against it to study him with the darkest eyes Matt had ever seen. She was so beautiful he almost forgot to breathe, with hair as black as night, held by a finely woven silver band, and as graceful in repose as another woman would be dancing. He halfway thought that he knew her, but he rejected the idea out of hand. No man could ever forget a woman like her. Again, that is, is that just someone who's beautiful, or he forgot to breathe? Like, that is, I don't know. Yes, there are sometimes people who are, extremely attractive, and that may happen, but it happens to everyone that Lanfear visits. It just seems a little bit too much. There is some subtle changes that are happening, but it's before I get your thoughts, let me show you the other part. So maybe Zul, you can read this. This is the same meeting, and Matt asks, are you a nice to die? But then asks, are you a dark friend? So she replies,
this is good.
Yeah.
A dark friend? Selene said mockingly. She sounded amused, not angered. She sounded contemptuous. One of those pathetic followers of Baal-Zaman who think he will give them immortality and power? I follow no one. There is one man I could stand beside, but I do not follow.
Right. So she clearly is talking about some of her, why she's doing what she's doing, and there's one man she would stand beside and she would not follow. And this a little later within the same, let me make sure. Yep. She's kind of talking to Matt more. So Zul, do you mind reading this one too?
Matt, you must learn to trust me. Oh, I will use you too. You have too suspicious of nature, especially since carrying that dagger for me to deny it. But my use will gain you wealth and power and glory. I will not compel you. I have always believed men perform better if convinced rather than forced. These Aes Sedai do not even realize how important you are, and he will try to dissuade or kill you, but I can give you what you desire.
So, if you want to believe Lanfear at her word, she said, I will not compel you. It is clearly, she's trying to be earnest in a way, and being like, Matt, I'm going to use you. I won't compel you. These are the reasons. And, this is why you should, do what I'm saying. So do you think this convinces you in any way that she would not compel people, Eric? Because she said it?
Well, I have to sort of apologize a little bit and say, when I first started doing the Twitter of Time thing, Lanfear was far from my favorite character. But doing this, you have to go back to the books in order to be in character and do this, and it's really speaks to what good character she is, and that every single time you read her, you don't know if she's telling the truth or not, and so I've become a apologist, I guess.
Right.
And so I'm looking at that. Can you put that quote up again?
Yeah.
There was something in it. Yeah, I will not compel you. I've always believed men perform better if convinced rather than forced. And she says the same thing again to Rand, sort of.
Yeah.
Later. And so if she repeats it, you tend to believe it. But there's been so much of
I'm going to reserve
Lies and you don't know.
my thoughts. Zul, what do you think?
Does she ever say to Perrin that she will not compel him? And
Oh,
see here,
wow.
I think she's yeah.
Uh,
I think she is saying to Matt in this instance, like, if you kind of come along with me and like don't do anything that I, go along with what I said I want right now, but don't trust them. And she gives, she's kind of trying to separate him from the Aes Sedai. Like, if you come with me, I don't want to compel you to come with me.
mhm.
And so I don't think she's saying that she would never compel him. I think she's being like, hey, I'm just trying to be honest with you. I'm going to use you. But you can use me too to get some power and glory and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So I think when she's trying to get him, people who she finds important, like Perrin or Rand or Matt, to do something with her, that I don't think she's using compulsion when she's just trying to get them to do something. She wants them to want to do it, whatever it is.
Right.
So that's why that thing at the end with Perrin is so...
Yeah. No, again, Lanfear will say anything she wants to say in the moment to get what she wants. So in that moment, she wants to convince Matt to do whatever she wants to do, and she's like, I will not compel you. But she would compel Matt in a second, in my opinion, if that's what will get her what she needs, later on, or if the situation so arises that is the best course of action to get to her goal. So I think that's where she's consistent in. She, even though she's saying this, she's saying it not, she may believe it, but she might if it actually goes with her goals. This is interesting. Alexander Erickson said she's described to have a pull similar to Taverin. It is never said outright, but she definitely has a pull that makes people act. And that's one thing that I thought, can the pattern choose someone, like the Chosen, and give them a Taverin kind of pull? Like, is that possible for someone like Lanfear or Mirren to have had that? I don't think so, but maybe the Dark One has something like that too, and it's the anti-Taverin kind of thing. Again, it's never been talked about, but in thinking of things that could be possible for what this effect is, I think there is something more. It's not entirely sure what it is. Anything else
before?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, you said before it's possible Robert Jordan hadn't worked out compulsion yet, and so maybe she was, or maybe that was all her.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I don't think there's anything clear in that someone, given that she's using compulsion so well at the end. To me, it's like it's always been there. We just never saw it sometimes, or never wanted to see it, but it's always been there. There were a couple of times she met. So that's when she met Matt as Selene. Were there any other Selene moments before we kind of jump on to the kind of the next mask? Was there another Selene moment that you thought was important?
Didn't she meet Perrin in the dream world as Selene?
I think.
Was she, or does she just not name herself there?
I'm not entirely sure if she names herself as that, but I think by that time we hadn't seen her show herself like that, so I'm not sure how she was. I actually don't have that one.
The first time, okay, she's described the same in when she appears to Min at the end of the Great Hunt as when she appears to Rand at all, or whatever, all of them in the mirror world. It's not until I don't think she appears differently until the Shadow Rising, when she changes herself right in front of Rand.
Yes. And
drops the Selene form. Yeah. So in the Dragon Reborn, in between those two books, is when she appears to Perrin in the dream.
You're talking about in the Stone of Tyr at the start, right?
Oh, in
the Shadow Rising, yes.
Yeah, in the Shadow Rising. That's
exactly.
in the Stone of Tyr, in his chambers. but she appears to
So I didn't actually put this on, Dale. Matt, in this meeting that we just showed, she actually does say, "Call me Lady Selene." So
she does say to Matt directly.
yeah, exactly. So she does actually say Lady Selene. I actually don't have that quote up here, but it's within this passage that she actually, still is sticking to Selene in the Dragon Reborn for the most part.
I just looked it up, and when she appears in the Dragon Reborn to Perrin in the Dream World, she's not named. However, we know it's her. She has all of the same descriptions, and of course, she is the most beautiful woman he had ever seen.
Right. That is the first few ways. So the other one that I wanted to bring up is Elsie Grinwell. Unless there's something on Selene that you wanted to talk about. So there's a couple of Elsie ones. The one that I had not the most trouble. I mean, there's a lot of Lanfear things that don't make sense to me, but the one is when she meets Matt. Pretty much, I think before, as Matt is walking to the quarterstaff fight. I think that's what happens. And I think I have it right here.
He's been scouting out to see if he can get past the guards on the
exactly
bridges and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's walking down a path and just sees her.
Yeah. So this is her walking. So I can read this. A girl in novice white appeared ahead on the path, striding purposefully toward him. Wrapped in her own thoughts, she did not see him at first. When she came close enough for him to make out her big dark eyes and the way her hair was braided, he grinned suddenly. He knew this girl. Memory drifting up from shadowed depths, though he would never have expected to find her here. He had never expected to see her again at all. He grinned to himself. Good luck to balance bad, as he remembered she had quite an eye for boys. So, at this point, I'm thinking this is just Elsie Grinwell, right? Like, she's just in the White Tower. And soon thereafter, he's trying to, let me see... he tries to talk to her. She says, well, Elsie Grinwell, you remember me, don't you? Matt Cawthon, a friend, and I visited your father's farm. Remember? Have you decided to become Aes Sedai then? And I'm not going to read this whole, but basically she's like, it seems like she doesn't recognize him. And he's like, what is the matter, Elsie? You look like you don't know me. And at this point, I'm like, what is Lanfear doing? Did she just get caught walking around as Elsie and has no, what is she doing? And because at the end, this is how it ends. She's like, I know you, she said. Her manner was not as he remembered either. He thought she could give Elaine lessons now. I have work to be about. Let me by. He grimaced. The path was broad enough for 6 to walk abreast without crowding. I told you it isn't catching. Let me by. And she goes off. So I for the life of me, have tried to figure out why she will be walking around as Elsie, meet Matt, not really say anything, and just, keep walking. That just seems like Robert Jordan trying to tell us, whenever you see Elsie, she might not be who you think she is. What do you think, Zul? What is Lanfear's motivation to be here as Elsie?
Well, I think she has various things to be doing around the White Tower, and she has chosen Elsie Grinwell as her mask to wear as she does this, to fly under the radar as a novice, And so I think she didn't intend to come across Matt here. And she didn't want him to actually touch her because maybe the mask would fuzz or something. And so, and she might not have known even that Matt knew who Elsie Grinwell was.
Right.
And so she didn't know that Elsie was supposed to be familiar with Matt.
Right.
And so, she might not have even known the real persona of Elsie Grinwell. She just knew that she had been dismissed. And so it's somebody she could walk around and not bump into herself.
Right. Yeah. Eric, do you think this was like, Lanfear just getting, you know, stopped by chance, or is this Matt's Taverness that kind of pulled, Elsie in, and that's what happened? What do you think?
Well, the next chapter, and I don't have it here, but the very next chapter is when Egwene sees her.
Yes. Okay.
And
So
so
I'm
I
glad
don't
you
know if
brought that
that's
up.
Mhm.
I didn't notice if that was that night or something, or 10 minutes later.
So she's just walking to.
Like
So I
she's got to
yeah,
get there to prepare the stuff,
yeah,
prepare the thing, make sure the things are there for them to find and
yeah. So
something.
that
I don't
yeah. So,
remember
so
the
maybe this is
timeline.
just maybe this is just
I like
like
that.
from a timeline standpoint, it fits that. Let me actually pull that up. This is a little long, so I'll read the first, and Eric, I'll have you read the next part. This is Elaine, Nynaeve, and Egwene in I think Egwene's room. She became aware of a woman standing in the doorway, a woman in novice white with hair in long braids. Did no one ever teach you to knock, Elsie? Nynaeve said. Egwene had the stone ring inside her fist. She had the strangest feeling that Elsie had been staring at it. I have a message for you, Elsie said calmly. Her eyes studied the table with all the papers scattered on it, then the three women around it. From the Amerlin. Egwene exchanged wondering looks with Nynaeve and Elaine. Well, what is it? Nynaeve demanded. Elsie arched an eyebrow in amusement. The belongings left behind by Leandrin and the others were put in the third storeroom on the right from the main stairs in the second basement under the library. She glanced at the papers on the table again and left, neither hurrying nor moving slowly. Egwene felt as if she could not breathe. We're afraid to trust anybody, and the Amerlin decides to trust Elsie Grinwell of all women? That fool girl cannot be trusted not to blab to anyone who'll listen. Nynaeve started for the door. So, again, there were a few things there that were, again, I think if we now look at kind of what you said, Eric, something didn't feel right about Elsie. And maybe in the chapter before, that was Robert Jordan trying to kind of put that seed there, that she didn't seem right before. She doesn't seem like the person we know now. There's something going on. My initial thought from what I remember back to this was Elsie being compelled. She was under compulsion and, sent to do
That's
this.
good.
It just felt to me like, why would Lanfear do it herself? But it does kind of, I think later on, I forget how we're told that Elsie wasn't in the White Tower at that time, so it had to be Lanfear. And I'll bring up the part where, we see someone who's Lanfear when Egwene chases. So Eric, what do you think? Like, why is Lanfear doing somewhat menial or trivial kind of stuff where she could maybe just compel someone to do it?
I was gonna say, I think that was a good point that you said about the previous chapter, that was foreshadowing that something's off with Elsie. So it's not just she shows up and you think it's Elsie, because we still haven't learned in these books yet much about people taking different guises, I think.
Mhm.
I can't think of I'd have to think, but that's still being, I don't know if we're supposed to be really suspicious of that yet. And so,
Yeah, I think there is some of that is probably just RJ trying to be like, this is be wary of who someone could be. I personally, from what I remember, thought it was fairly heavy-handed in this case. In other cases, it was less so. By the Shadow Rising, I think it became like, who is it really within when you get to the waist and things like that. Exactly, yeah. Let's see. So Egwene chases after her and basically is trying to figure out. Let me try to pull the one. And this is where I think, here. I'm going to read this one because this is, I thought, again, maybe compulsion, because there are certain things here that just don't make sense. So Egwene grabbed up her skirts and darted past her at a run. Her shoes skidded on the tiles of the gallery, but she caught a glimpse of white vanishing down the nearest ramp and dashed after it. She must be running too to be so far ahead already. Why is she running? The flash of white was already disappearing down another ramp. Egwene followed. A woman turned to face her at the foot of the ramp, and Egwene stopped in confusion. Whoever she was, this was certainly not Elsie. All in silver and white silk, she sparked feelings Egwene had never had before. She was taller, more beautiful by far, and the look in her black eyes made Egwene feel small, scrawny, and none too clean. She can probably channel more of the power than I can, too. Light. She's probably smarter than all three of us put together on top of it. It isn't fair for one woman to... Abruptly, she realized the way her thoughts were going. Her cheeks reddened, and she gave herself a shake. She had never felt less than any other woman before, and she was not about to start now. So, this... Again, Egwene is very deeply affected by not, the mask that Lanfear is wearing right now, but what seems to be a little bit more than just that. So, again, it comes back to, did Lanfear allow herself to be seen or caught here, Zul, or what
was
happened?
The order of events here? Was this when...
So this is basically Elsie comes and tells them, and then Egwene's like, whoa, she just left. I need to run after her and make sure she doesn't talk.
Tell anyone talk.
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly. So, and then she runs into Lanfear.
Does she see a woman in white or anything anywhere around Baron's place when she goes to get the ring?
I don't think so. I don't think there's any mention prior to this. I think this is the only time...
I was just wondering because there is that whole idea of whether or not Baron received instructions from the Chosen before giving that ring to, and so I was wondering if maybe there was something I wasn't remembering.
I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I was trying to, in terms of motivations, what do you think the Lanfear motivation to be Elsie is? Is it just to get some information to the girls so they can follow the Black Aja and get them to Tyr, to Kalandor? Well, what do you think the Elsie motivation here is? Eric, any thoughts?
Their very goal afterwards is when they find the things, they say we have to go to Tyr. That's where they've gone. We have to catch them. And we find out later that was Balal's goal, was to get them there to use as bait, I guess, for Rand. So she's working that plot.
I just feel
that's
like
her ultimate goal.
Yeah, I think that, I guess my not problem, the thing, I just feel like, why is Lanfear doing this herself and not having minions or so do it? Or is this just how she works because she doesn't trust anyone else? So what do you think?
I think she doesn't trust anyone.
Yeah.
That would be my bet. I think she, she's trying to get other people to trust her, but she doesn't trust it.
Right.
And she has her own path, and why would she tell anyone else what her real goals are? Mm-hmm. She might, say that she's going to work with other Forsaken or Chosen. Chosen.
Chosen.
For a particular goal.
Yeah.
But she's not going to tell them what her real goals are, and her machinations behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And so I very much think, she just chose, someone who could walk through the novice and accepted quarters, and not really be, commented on. And it's the most expeditious guys that she could choose. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, that means that she had to have been lurking around the tower before Elsie was dismissed,
right,
in order to have that look down.
Yeah, I think that does make sense. Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
I was gonna say, as to why she maybe didn't have a flunky dark friend do this. She hasn't really met the Egwene, Elaine and Nynaeve yet. I don't think.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
anyway, this could
yeah,
be an opportunity to say, well, what's the big deal about them? Maybe.
yeah.
She does make a point of meeting all of the EF5, Field 5
Yes.
in person.
Yes.
And that is one thing that I've begun to appreciate about her.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that probably makes sense, that her motivations here is basically to get the girls to tear. Because I think the other persona that I think we should move on to is Silvy, the woman seen in the World of Dreams that Egwene meets. And those motivations, again, are similar. So let me put that up here. And Eric, maybe you can read this. This is the description that we see of, again, in The Dragon Reborn, chapter 27, Tal Ranriod, when Egwene's in Tar at this point.
An old woman stepped out of the shadows of the column, bent and hobbling with a stick. Ugly did not begin to describe her. She had a bony, pointed chin, an even bonier, sharper nose, and it seemed there were more warts growing hairs on her face than there was face.
Right. So clearly,
not Selene.
Exactly. So there is a totally different face to this person. Again, let me ask people in chat here. Did you think poor old Silvy was Lanfear when you first read this in The Dragon Reborn? I wasn't sure if it was Lanfear, but I knew this was someone clearly messing with them, because there's a few things that she says that are clearly someone who is not an old woman just dreaming herself into the world of dreams. So what do you think? What does this tell us about Lanfear in terms of she can change her appearance to be someone who is ugly did not begin to describe her.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous how far she went with this. I think this goes along with you saying that she'll do whatever she needs to. Mm-hmm. And although I think she is very proud of how she looks in and of herself, she has no problem going around as someone who's old, young, fat, warty, whatever, if it's going to get her into the places she needs to be in and give her influence over the people that she wants to influence. I think those are her main considerations, is like, okay, how can I, because when we see her in the waist as Kylie or Keille or however you say her name, she is a much bigger woman.
Right.
And she says to Rand at some point, hey, my ego is big enough that I could handle a little extra weight.
Right, exactly, yeah. So let me read
something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Let me read what Sylvie actually says, and again, it's just so telling, and when you read it again, that is Lanfear, saying this. Just poor old Sylvie, my lady, the old woman cackled. At the same time, she managed a stoop that might have been meant for a curtsy or possibly a cringe. Poor old Sylvie, my lady, served her family faithfully all these years. Does this old face still frighten you? Don't let it, my lady. It serves me when I need it, as good as a prettier. Of course it does, Egwene said. It's a strong face, a good face. So, again, she's clearly saying, I will do whatever I need to do with my appearance or otherwise to get what I need, and this will serve me, and that's what I want. I liked how she said that it serves me, because she wants everyone and everything to serve her. That is like her kind of goal. I think the rest of this passage is basically a little bit, talking about Calendor, that, this is the place a lot of plots, and then I think Ishamel's coming there, so Lanfear basically takes the ring.
Or is it even Bilal?
It could have been Bilal. Yeah, you're right. It might have been Bilal.
Because he's been staring at
yes,
Calendor
exactly.
a lot.
Yeah, but I think she just tells Egwene to curse at Balsamon, and Egwene does so. And again, this was another part where I was like, why is Egwene doing something Egwene's fairly smart. Why is she just listening to this old person and she even says, it's a strong face, a good face. I mean, that's maybe Egwene just being nice. But I mean, again, it always makes me think, is there a little bit of compulsion always going on with Lanfear? Maybe this is like,
well, she hasn't been there. Egwene hasn't been there before.
Yeah.
So she's nervous, and this is the first person she meets, and so maybe she knows she's smarter. She can help me. She's then the woman says, "You knew me" or something, and
naive Egwene. Yeah, you could definitely, gullible, naive Egwene. This is the start of her dream world journey. That is true. Yeah. I
found that interesting and a little odd that Egwene really didn't think, I never met her. We didn't have a person who served us like this. She was just, her mind was thinking other things. And so if that was me, I would have said, well, she said she knows me. No, and so it was, she wasn't quite there, I think.
Right.
Or
I just thought Egwene was just like, this poor woman thinks she knows me, and we're
let me try to get more information. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just,
and let's just go along with it just to see.
Okay.
Yeah. No, for sure. So in terms of motivations, the two things, at least from the companion, that I thought were interesting. Let me just read this entry in the companion. This is under Lanfear. So when she awakened in the third age, she transferred that passion to Rand. She posed as Selene, a Carian noblewoman, traveled with him, and attempted to seduce him. When Rand was in the waste, she posed as Kylie Shogi, a peddler. Posing as Silvy, she attempted to bamboozle Egwene in the world of dreams. So, I mean, again, these are, simplistic maybe ways of just describing what she was doing, but she was seducing Rand, she was bamboozling Egwene. I think she was much more, advanced plotting in what she wanted done, and I don't think that they mentioned Elsie here, but it's clear in other parts that that was again in plot maneuvering that Lanfear was doing throughout this time. I think the first three books, you see Selene, you see Elsie, you see Silvy, but I think really when you get to that fourth mask, the Kylie mask in the Shadow Rising, this is where it's advanced level, disguise, mirror, the Mask of Mirrors. So do you remember, when you first meet the peddler, Hadnan Kadir, Isandre, that whole group there? I'm going to end this poll here where I asked people, do you think Silvy was Lanfear when you first read The Dragon Reborn? It seems like 65% no. It is one that, I probably didn't think it was Lanfear, but it was probably someone that, wasn't who they were appearing to be. But I think for Kylie, at least for me, I knew they were there somewhere, but I didn't think it was Kylie. I don't know what.
Did you think it was Isandra?
I don't even remember what it was. I thought it could have been. Who was the third person there?
Hadnan Kadir. There was Hadnan Kadir, Kylie,
Jason Nattel.
Yeah. Jason Nattel, and
those four.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to think back, but I don't really remember what I ended up with. But the way she reveals herself, I thought was, oh yeah. I mean, we've seen this before with Silvy. If you really think about it, that she would not mind looking a certain way to get where she needs to get. So, what do you think with Kylie? Was it obvious to you as a reader that this is Lanfear? Zul or Eric, what do you
Like I
think?
told you,
Eric,
I
you
don't
go.
remember, but looking at it now, it's like the whole. You're probably going to put it up there, but she's wearing white and her voice and everything. It's how could it? Was there a question? Kind of.
Right.
It's
Let me.
intuitively obvious to the
Yeah. So this is. I don't have the actual from the Shadow Rising. I don't think I got these. Maybe I did. I'll try to find it. But this is from the companion. A persona Lanfear used when she traveled with Hud and Kadir. In this guise, she was a foot shorter than Kadir and immensely fat, with dark eyes buried in rolls of fat and a hatchet nose that dwarfed Kadir's. She wore a white lace shawl held above her head, and elaborate ivory combs thrust into long, coarse black hair. Her voice was extremely beautiful and melodious. She moved with incongruous lightness, almost like one of the maidens. So even within that, the description, and some of this words is word to word from her description in the books. I think it was there to be looked at and be like someone who's wearing white with black hair, ivory combs, a beautiful voice, and incongruous way of movement. I mean, Zul, in second reading, would it be like, yes, this must be
Oh my
Lanfear?
gosh, yes. Yeah, seriously. I mean, I knew we had dark roots, right? So I was kind of looking to see, who might be somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been so long since I've read it, but I do remember like trying to puzzle it through and, thinking, well, would she just let herself be bossed? Maybe she would be a Sandra and just let herself be bossed around and be like the pretty arm candy who's really evil when they go to look at the dead bodies at Immerstein or something.
Yeah.
She wants to see all the blood and gore. I'm like, well, maybe that's her. So I wasn't sure. And I kept thinking, and I kept looking at the two men to see who might be someone there. And so when you start seeing back and forth between Hadna and Kadir and Kylie, as that goes on, that's kind of when I start moving over from Isandra to Kylie.
Right.
Just because of the strength of character that she shows there, just feels over a long period of time, because she uses this guise for a long period of time.
Yeah. Christian is, if she just stopped wearing white all the time, then disguise it would be more effective. I mean, it is. I mean, to the casual observer, it becomes intuitively obvious. I
White
think.
And silver.
Yeah. So that is definitely there. So let me have you read this. This is about it's chapter 36 when we were introduced, and this is chapter 48, an offer refused in the Shadow Rising. So it's a fair bit of time has passed, and I think this part here has certain things that if you reread, you're like, oh, that's Lanfear talking. Let me put this on the screen.
Keille watched, round-faced, unreadable, until the white door closed, then suddenly rounded on Matt, who was on the point of slipping away. Few men have ever refused an offer from me once, much less twice. You should have care. You should have a care. I do not take it in mind to do something about it. Laughing, she reached up and pinched his cheek with thick fingers hard enough to make him wince, then turned in Rand's direction. Tell him, my Lord Dragon, I have a feeling you know something of the dangers of scorning a woman. The Aiel girl who follows you about, glaring. I hear you belong to another. Perhaps she feels scorned. I doubt it, mistress, he said dryly. Avienda would plant a knife in my ribs if she believed I had thought of her that way. The immense woman laughed uproariously. Matt flinched as she reached for him again, but all she did was pat his cheek she had pinched before. You see, good sir, scorn a woman's offer, and perhaps she thinks nothing of it, but perhaps she made a skewering motion, the knife. A lesson any man can learn. Eh, my lord dragon? Wheezing with laughter, she hurried off to check on the men tending the wheels.
So, I mean, how much foreshadowing is there in this passage? I mean, there's one where she's, turning to Rand and saying, "I have a feeling you know something of the dangers of scorning a woman."
Scorning a woman, yeah.
I mean, it is. When I read this again, I was like, it's quite clear what's happening here. And then she made a skewering motion. I think this is clearly, what happens to Hadnan Kadir, later on in terms of, if you scorn a woman's offer, or what ends up happening when she finds out about Avienda and the messenger. Is this kind of the skinning motion happening? I don't know. When I read it, that just made me think of that.
Well, what about the whole thing with Matt and women pulling knives on him?
Yeah, I mean, it's
I mean,
there's so much here.
He scorns two women who are dark brands who then pull knives on him.
Yeah, so I think there's so much that's going on here, but a lesson any man can learn. So I think a lot of what she was trying to do within this maneuvering was also keep an eye out on Rand and making sure that he continues to, not stray from her. So what do you think that motivation for Kylie was? She wanted to be close. She had said at that point that she wanted Asmodine to teach him or get a teacher. But I think a lot of throughout these Rand, when she was near Rand, is just to keep him in check. That's I think the biggest motivation of Lanfear for a lot of these is because that was her undoing eventually, right? When she finds out that Rand had been with the Avienda. Eric, what do you think? Was that like one of the main things she's trying to do here? Is just make sure Rand doesn't stray too far,
be near him.
Yeah, and basically protect him in some way.
Yeah, what's puzzled me through most of, and I'm not sure I've ever figured it out, is the plot with Asmodian. Like, we didn't really get it from Asmodian's side. Like, what did she tell him? Like, I'm gonna set you up to be Rand's teacher. What did he think he was getting, hiding there too? And they both.
Yeah, I think in that, I don't think as the whole time in the Shadow Rising, there was this discussion that seemed to be happening, privately between the two, and they're arguing all the time. And I think by the end, she just puts him in a spot where Asmodian has no choice than to be Rand's teacher. So I think there was a little bit of maneuvering where he tried to get to. She tried to convince Asmodian to do that, but I don't think. Yeah, you're right. We never see that, but we always see them talking amongst themselves. That Matt sees or Rand sees, that they're always kind of arguing, and they go behind doors or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Eric. What was Asmodian's motivation? And in the Stone of Tyr, when Lanfear presents the idea of him meeting Asmodian as a teacher, she even says, I think it's at that point, she even says, and then we can kill it. We can like together we can like knock off all of the other chosen. The Dark One won't mind. He likes it when we like fight amongst ourselves, make ourselves stronger, whatever. And then we can maybe even chat with these two Sangreal can challenge the Dark One and maybe the Creator himself. So she kind of lays that all out there. So I'm wondering, what did she offer Asmodian? Did she say, hey, let's get him on our side. Together we can bring him over to the Dark One. The Dark One will reward us for bringing him together. And so maybe that's his motivation too, for just being there. And then she's shown who she is to Rand. It doesn't want Rand to know who she is as Lanfear or Selene. So she has to be someone else. But we see Jason Mateo. he's not using any mask of mirrors. That's just what Asmodean looks like. So
Right.
He's not worried about being recognized by anybody. But he's there and gets a chance to make connections with Matt, with Rand, as they go along. And so I really like that. That's an excellent question about his motivation. Never thought about that before.
Right. So those are the, kind of wrap it up in terms of actual disguises, right? Selene, Elsie, and again, Elsie is a person that she's impersonating rather than a persona of hers. Silvy, again, I think a persona, not a person that we know of, and then Kylie, again, a persona. From a mask standpoint, I was going to put, what was the best mask that Lanfear used? Selene. I'm not going to put Elsie because that's impersonation and not as clear. So Selene.
To me, that's still a mask.
Okay. The only reason is there's 4 choices. So I wanted to put Selene. I'm going to put Silvy, Kylie, and I want to put Lanfear on there because that is the kind of last kind of thing. Is the Lanfear that we see when she reveals herself at the end of the Ragnar Reborn, at the start of the Shadow Rising, at the end of the Shadow Rising, when she has the "Who is Avienda" moment, is that all a mask? Do we ever see, the person? Again, this goes back to my first poll. Do we ever see Mirren? Do we ever see the person who became Lanfear, and became that chosen, in text in the books? So is Lanfear a mask?
What do you think? Anas? I want you to answer first.
I think for the most part, that is a mask. I think she is trying to get to a certain place, and I think the only point that she is actually that original person is in the Memory of Light when she's talking to Rand, and Rand almost gets to her. Even when she's like angry and doing the "Who is Avienda" thing, that might be also close to that, but I still think that is she's just angry, and that's the persona that she uses as Lanfear and Luther and jealousy and all that together. But the actual person, Mirren, who became the chosen, I don't think we actually see until maybe just a tiny bit right at the end. So let's see. Let me put this in as a poll. Let me try to find that specific thing that I'm talking about so I can show.
In the Memory of Light?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that I have a feeling that she left Mirren behind and created a new self. People knew that she was the one who opened the war. She'd been betrayed in her mind by Lews Therin. And when she went over to the dark side, I think that she curated for herself a persona and became that.
Right.
So I think that was her first mask, but I think she then became that. And that she left so much of Nieren behind that when she yells, "Who is Avienda?" and she's got that rage, I really think that is a lot of the core of who she is. That's the same. That is a little bit of who Nieren is,
right.
The Nieren who became Lanfear, because she's back to that same moment of being betrayed by Lews Therin. It's all merging into one at that moment. So to me, that's my first real moment of seeing who she is.
Right. Yeah. Eric, what about you? Do you think the whole time we see the actual Lanfear person is somewhat of a mask, and is the person, like Zul said, Mirren is almost gone and really doesn't exist?
I would agree with Zul on that last part, that I think Who's Avienda was, that moment was why she turned to the shadow. You talked the other night about how it was the timeline was kind of weird, but it was 50 years after found the boar that she went over to the shadow. She didn't do it right away. It was only after the wedding
Yeah.
or that she turned, and so
Well, I think it
that
was more. I think not. I wouldn't say it was only that. I would probably say when she finally realized, well, to get that power that she wanted, because I think that's what she wants is power.
right,
Is I should. Well, I'm not gonna get it through Lutheran. I'm gonna go over
Mhm.
to the this other side and try to get it through the dark one at that point. So
Well, and she
I
was never going to get a third name at that point either, because her
yeah,
big move, drilling the bore to get this new power, failed.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it backfired. I mean, there's yeah,
It backfired.
yeah,
She's lost booze, she's lost that.
yeah,
So this is her other week, and that's the reason she would never go back to the light,
yeah,
is because it's never going to get her what she wants, which is
yeah.
power and immortality.
Exactly. So
yeah.
I found the A Memory of Light. Let me put that up here and read this. So this is again, full book spoilers. Um, then prove it to me, Rand said, stopping. Show me your mind mirror and open it to me completely. Give me control over you here in this place of master dreams. If your intentions are pure, I will free you. What you ask is forbidden. Rand laughed. When has that ever stopped you? She seemed to consider it. She must have been worried about her imprisonment. Once she would have laughed at a suggestion such as this, since this was ostensibly a place where he had complete control. If she gave him leave, he could strip her down, delve with her mind. And the second part here, let me pull it up, is I, Lanfear said. He stepped forward right to the lip of the prison. That tremble in her voice, that felt real. The first genuine emotion from her. Light, he thought, searching her eyes. Is she actually going to do it? I cannot, she said. I cannot. She said it the second time more softly. Rand exhaled. He found his hand shaking. So close to the light, like a feral cat in the night, stalking back and forth before the firelit barn. He found himself angrier than before. Always she did this, flirting with what was right, but always choosing her own path. So I think, yeah, when I've looked at a lot of this, this, at least to me, was the only part where we were like, that is that person without the mask that we finally see, and she couldn't do it because she's built up such a, she just needs the power or whatever she needs, and she can't give that up. So even within that, if she, because of that mask, she said no, I'm not going to be able to do this. So let's see what people are saying. Yeah, I mean, I asked what is the best mask, so it does, give a lot of variability in how you want to interpret that. What do you think was the best mask she used, Eric? What was your kind of
Oh,
favorite mask?
Selene. I guess I don't really count Lanfear.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I would say Selene because that's the longest con she did. And the most, can you say the most important? That little plot, getting the women to tear,
Yeah, it's one she
getting Rand
used.
to teach her, but she's figuring out who is this Luce Theron. She's got to get him to accept his destiny, maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I think which was most successful? It was Celine successful. Do you think, Zul?
I don't think Selene was successful.
Yeah,
I mean, she didn't get what she wanted with Rand. She didn't get what she wanted with Matt. She did make an impression at one point a little bit, but still didn't get what she wanted with Perrin. So I don't think Selene was that successful. I do think it was successful in the sense that it allowed her to have some familiarity with Rand, and he had a little bit of trust with her enough to not like immediately kill her when she shows up.
Yeah.
and says, "I'm Lanfear."
Right.
I'm look at me. I'm not really Selene. I'm Lanfear. He's like,
Yeah.
"You poor woman. Are you crazy?"
Yeah.
So I think that uh, Kylie was very successful because it allowed her to be close and be undetected
Mm-hmm.
for a long period of time in
Yeah.
the waste. It allowed her to get Rand that male channeler as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I think she wanted that. That was a specific goal. It got her what she wanted at that moment, and
Mm-hmm.
even better because then Asmodean couldn't go back to the Dark One because he
Right.
was cut off.
Yes.
So I think it was like that was to me the most successful.
Yeah. I think the Kylie one, um, the only thing was, and again, when I don't have that quote here, but when she finally reveals herself,
Mm-hmm.
um, Rand is like I knew, like Rand knew from the start that that she was around. Maybe she wasn't that
Mm-hmm.
person, but she knew she was around. So I think it could have been even more successful if she somehow did it with Rand having no clue, but I think that was hard because by that time Rand was suspicious of everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was
Well,
probably
and I
hard.
think that by this point we're all like everybody, right?
Yes, yeah,
At this
yes,
point we're like she's somewhere. If somebody new comes up, this Lanfear, and it's funny to listen to first time reader podcasts because they're all like, "Is this one Lanfear?" Because that
yeah.
once they learn that she's like going around, with masks on, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's Lanfear, and I
Yeah,
kind of love that.
this is interesting. Do you think she used masks as Mirren? She used Selene, oh, not this one, sorry, that she used Selene in the past to dupe LTT in the second age. So was she a master of, a master kind of masquerade and did masks as Mirren, or was it afterwards?
I wondered when she hasn't met Rand yet, when she in the portal world, when she screams and needs him to rescue her supposedly from the Grom. So I wondered, was that something about the relationship that he was somebody who thought of himself he had to be a rescuer, or that if she presented herself this way he would jump to
Yeah,
her defense, or was it
exactly. Yeah,
because he's the boy and she's assuming that,
yeah. So I think it's a really good point. Like, how does Lanfear know that Rand the boy would be like, I need to save a woman? Like, sure, that could be just a trait that Lutherian also had, as was a savior sort of person. But I think there could be a little bit more where it's like, let me come as a person that needs to be saved. Now the question that probably brings up as well, if she was worried that she would use a disguise she used before with Lutherian, if there's any lose in Rand, he would recognize her. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes me think that not that actual face, but that persona of a woman who needs saving. So I think that is definitely something that could be used. Let me actually put that in as a poll to see, did Mirren use masks with LTT in the second age?
What would be the purpose of her using
Well,
the
again,
mask with him?
trying to get back to him, right? Trying to win him back, or basically manipulate him in some way,
Hmm.
to do that. I mean, why does Mirren do anything? Let me try to see if this works. I'm showing a different way of starting a. Oh, good. All right, perfect. It has started. So I've started a raffle. A Dusty Wheel mug raffle has started in chat. Do exclamation raffle to enter, and let me see if this works. Um,
A bubble of evil got my Dusty Wheel mug, so broke the
okay,
handle off. So I'm entering.
perfect. I see. I see people entering. Great, perfect, Eric, mug flex there. Any thoughts? I think we've gone over. We're about 90 minutes plus. Getting to the end of this as this raffle goes. Eric, any other thoughts? Any things you had? I mean, I didn't put this on there, but there is another mask. You wear a mask on Twitter of Time as Lanfear. Is that the best mask? And that we've seen of Lanfear. What was I guess the motivations there of Twitter of Time Lanfear to be on Twitter?
Yeah. When I found Twitter of Time, there wasn't much of a Twitter of Time yet. Every character was available more or less, and I'm a fiction writing hobbyist, and so I love to write villains, and so she was one of the ones that was interesting. I thought I could do something with, and like I said before, I really didn't care for it at the time, but wanting to stay in character pretty much. In reading more, I felt she was a lot more interesting than just the personification of the insane ex-girlfriend meme,
Yeah.
So that she had all these plots, and even one would argue the greatest plot at the end. I would say that was a pretty good mask we didn't talk about tonight yet.
So, you mean the mask with Perrin? Is that the one you're looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like
is that it's canon, but it's not. I mean, can we?
I would say it's. I have become a Lanfear enthusiast. I've been told I need to say that from now on that Lanfear is the best shows. No, I actually have recognized more and more that Lanfear is great in terms of not just the character, but has always been important to the end of the series, and the fact that she lives, I think that's a to some degree. If there were going to be more books, I don't know what Robert Jordan would have done if he had finished this, but the fact that Sanderson did it fits with the character.
Okay, so here's a question.
Yeah.
All right, so she survived the last battle. She's stuck in the body where she that she was put in as Sindane. It's the opposite in every way from her Lanfear body. Her Lanfear body was 5'11",
yes,
tall, willowy, black hair, dark eyes, and the Sindane body is short. She tries to stand up tall because she doesn't like it. She's short. She's voluptuous. She's got silvery blonde hair, ice blue eyes, like in every way looks different.
Yes.
So here's a question. Do you think in the Fourth Age that Lanfear is walking around wearing a mask of mirror looking like the Lanfear that her old body, because she hates the body she's in?
That's interesting. Again, she wants her motivations at this point are still, I don't want anyone to know
You're right.
I've survived. So I think that would override how she looks. So because she wants no one to know, and she needs to continue scheming and trying to get ahead. So I think
except by herself in her bedroom with her mirror.
Exactly.
She wears it for herself.
She sleeps with the Lanfear, guys on, but otherwise, it's.
Well, she would have to think. Yeah, she'd have to think and remember who she encountered and talked to because she was gathering up dark friends as Sindane, and she had all kinds of minions as those. I can't imagine all those people died in the last battle, or some of them are still around. And so like you imagine Rand as Morden going around, or who's gonna freak out seeing him.
Yeah, so if she runs into anyone who knew her as Sindane at all, she's
Mm-hmm.
going to have to wear a mask and mirrors
Exactly. Yeah.
if she wants to keep
Right.
that going.
Yeah.
That she died.
Right. Exactly. I think
Yeah.
that is that shoes continue to use a mask. Now, are there times where she would use the Lanfear mask? It's possible, but I don't think she would want to do that all the time. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close entries here and pick a winner. Let's see. Yep, I see all of you guys here. Let's see. Norley has won a Dusty Wheel mug. Reach out to me either on Twitter or on Discord, and we'll get this mug to you. Congratulations. And for the second, that we're giving two kind of giveaways. The second one is, because YouTube loves comments on their videos afterwards. So after the video is done, go in the YouTube comments section and put in who you think was the best mask that that Lanfear used and why. And if there's one that we didn't talk about, or an aspect of it that we didn't talk about, put that in there, so you can continue the conversation there. But I think in terms of a mask, someone who uses masks, kind of to just finish this thought. Do we think we'll see a lot of masks and that in the show? We'll see different Lanfear masks.
It's a good question.
Yeah, what do you think, Zul?
Okay, so I know this was talked about in the Becoming Lanfear episode. I have a feeling that we're going to see Selene is the same person as Lanfear. Probably, maybe she dresses differently. If there's something about her that she acts differently, whatever. But I do think that they're potentially going to have a separate actress for Keille, and that instead of like Elsie, there is an Elsie Treehill.
Yeah.
Maybe we will see someone who it's the Elsie Treehill actress, but she acts weird.
Yeah.
And does stuff. We find out later that it
Yeah.
wasn't her. She was actually somewhere else. She'd been sent out to a farm on penance or something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really her. So I think we're going to get some sort of masks. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. I would rather they not do any CGI of any kind. That's
Right.
always very uncanny valley to be on a face.
Yes.
And a lot of times prosthetics, unless it's just a very subtle change of something, it's too obvious to me. So I don't know.
Yeah. What do you think? Eric, what do you think in terms of?
Yeah, that's the question. Different. We're talking about that this week.
Do you have a?
I was wondering if they would use Selene at all, and just it depends on who. In the books, you want to have the mystery of like, is she that this person is not Lanfear, but you don't know who this person is, but I'm not sure. That was my question. Would there be a transfer from book to TV? How would that translate?
Yeah, I'm not sure how they're going to, what choices they're going to do with that. But I think there should be some degree of, is Lanfear hiding among us, amongst us? And I think how. And I think that. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that they could do it where they have her kind of phase out of like the Elsie Treehill like actress into the actress we know as Lanfear? I mean, yeah. She kind of phases and then you see her walk away.
Right.
Where they kind of do something.
That is probably the best way to do it, is just, using different actors and using, not clear CGI to, change someone, but to have that transition to be like, okay, we know this is eventually as a flashback or something like that this was Lanfear all along. I don't know how to best do it in a season as an arc, but I think they they should try to do their best to have that that part of it, because I think the masks part of it, the disguise part of it of Lanfear is really important. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts before we wrap up Lanfear week? Sorry, I couldn't show the two. Let me actually try again if you're able to hear this, because there's one that I have a Lanfear parody that has not been seen before. I'm going to try again. So, Eric, any last thoughts about masks and Lanfear?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Eric, did you have any last thoughts about
No, thanks for having us. This is
Yeah.
for having Lanfear Week. This is,
Yeah.
who would have known? Twitter of time at all. It's been fun for everybody who role plays or does any of this.
Right.
It's a wonderful, especially in this last few years of a great way for a few minutes to make somebody laugh, and that's been my goal. That's why I do that. And so if somebody spits out their drink on their laptop because of it, that was victory.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see. I'm going to try here to see if this plays.
I'm going to say that you've heard, if you've been watching these, you've heard Matt say that there were people who had said to him after the 10-year reveal that their opinion of Lanfear changed. And I am one of those people, because I just have always found her too one note. Selene was always annoying to me from the very beginning and way too obvious to me. So I guess because she was so obvious to me at the beginning, I was just always kind of like annoyed her or didn't like her. And so, it kind of made me go back and reevaluate everything that she did. Like, if she was smart enough to do that at the end and plan so that both sides would think that she was working to help them, but then thought that she was dead and she could go on and do whatever she wanted at the end, I'm like, oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go back and reevaluate some of the things that she did.
Yeah.
And I actually like her more. She's not as lame as I thought she was, Like,
that is true.
More to her.
Yes.
Yeah, and I read those scenes as Selene from Rand's perspective, right? So that brings a
dumb boy. She's a dumb boy.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
But she's so pretty.
That is true. That is true. That's I think a perfect end to Lanfear. She's just so pretty. That's what it is, Yeah. She's so important. She's so pretty. Yeah, I tried playing that again, and I don't think the sound is coming through. But we'll share that. There are two parodies. One that I think Andrew has shared. This other one.
Can you link those in the description of the video?
Yep.
Okay, that'd be great.
I'll do that. And thank you both for being here. Bubble of evil at the start, but we made it.
We survived.
We made it to the well. If you think about it, the first stream had a little bit of a bubble of evil.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of full circle. Wheel of time that we've come to this. As far as next week, we will be at WalkCon, so that is coming up. I'll be there. Innkeeper Hatch will be there. We're planning to do a live stream probably from there. Wednesday night is still up in the air in terms of if we'll do something, but maybe it'll happen. I'm gonna look at how things look at that, but definitely at WalkCon we'll see you back. And we did have some news earlier today that San Diego Comic-Con is having a panel from the Wheel of Time at 2 p.m. Pacific on July 20th, I think. Yes. So that, and they mentioned some things about what that is. So that is, the next couple of weeks are going to be exciting. We have WalkCon and then the panel at San Diego Comic-Con. So a lot of exciting things coming up. But and as we end Lanfear Week, as we say around here, good night from the Dusty Wheel, and smash the black.
Welcome to the Dusty Wheel. Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. You went right to kill it. Look at you. You're all ready. You're just done. I mean, this is like this is
really well. And now I'm like, great, my turn.
And if you don't like that, and you want to say, well, Robert Jordan could have made the two rivers all white. He could have, but he didn't. So,
Just complimented me on my dress, and as you can clearly see, I'm not white.
I see Lukomi as something along the lines of a Shida Haran analog.
It does make sense why it outlasted the breaking.
Yeah.
See, this is why I have Therese in the show, because she's going to correct everything that.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Dusty Will Show. What? Meme Off Challenge. Yay!
Pair of like baby face mounted on like a huge body. So like all of a sudden,
This is not just
like,
a traditional fantasy, right? There are sci-fi
And
elements.
just a moment ago, Rafe tweeted something. So let me get my guest in here with me, and
probably I would say put in 70-80% of the work. I got to be over the shoulder and be like, no,